folks, Brad here again. As I mentioned, this is a kind of a short tutorial on really, I guess I would say 3 ways to properly downshift in a obviously in a standard car. It's pretty easy once you learn to drive a standard upshift. Anyone can do that, but not a lot of people really fully understand what I would say is the best way to downshift when you need to get into a lower gear. So so not the best view of my feet, but I'm hoping you can pick this up. At the end of the day, you're driving along in 4th gear, and then you need to find a way to get into the gear for the corner without stopping. Here obviously I'm stopping, so the most oops, that was pretty bad. The most rudimentary way, of course, is to do what I'll do in a second here, which is covering the brake. As you're slowing down, so you got to go from 4th to 3rd. And you're slowing down, you just do this, and then you ease the clutch out, and lo and behold, you're in 3rd gear. Now that's a good way to get into the gear, but ultimately it's the lowest of the low, I would say, when it comes to properly downshifting. I'll do that again a couple times here. I'm just trying to get some raw footage here, so we do it. So as an example here, I'm coming up to a 2nd gear corner. I'm in 4th gear. Downshift I go, into 3rd. Kind of, you can feel the clutch grind, and then that's terrible. And then then you're in your corner, and away you can go. By far, a big step, a big improvement, frankly, is to at least begin to learn to heel and toe, which is, even though it says heel and toe, you actually, as others no doubt have said or shown, you use the sides of your feet. So in a previous video, you'll notice that I have my enormous throttle pedal that I had built to allow this, because this car is as awesome as my S2000 is. Unfortunately, it didn't come from the factory with a decent setup for heel and towing, I guess is the term. So put some more details on that in my previous video if you're interested. So as I move from this stop sign into downshifting by at least matching the revs. Now what this does, single clutch downshifting, what it does is it brings up the when you blip the throttle with only single clutching, it makes the engine speed in that gear match the road speed of the wheels, so that it minimizes the shock. Now I'll get into double clutch downshifting, which is what I tend to do almost all the time, and what that does is both. The first one of the clutches, if you want to say that, is for matching the engine to the road speed in the gear you want to go into, and then the next one, actually it's the other way around, the next one is to match the input shaft up to the output shaft as well, because in most modern gearboxes are fully synchronized, which is fine, which means you don't have to double clutch. But if you have a car without synchros, or if you frankly just want to be easier on your synchros, you double clutch. A perfect example of this working is if I do this without using the clutch at all. Like there, the gear, I went from 4th to 3rd, and the car just simply won't go into gear unless I match all of those. And since I didn't take the clutch out at all, I had to do both. I had to match the not only the input shaft to the road speed, but the engine speed in that gear, or it simply wouldn't have gone into gear. Same with a non-synchro gearbox in a race car. So driving a little awkwardly here. Sorry, the camera's in an awkward position, but you might have already caught a glimpse of me double clutch downshifting. So I'll turn around here and I'll give another example of all 3, with the wildcard example of downshifting without the clutch, like that. See, I'm going to make a quick turnaround here. See, that was, you can tell that all I'm doing is blipping the throttle. 1st gear, can I do it? Oh, perfect, look at that. Okay, so up through the gears, obviously. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th gear. So say I want to go into 3rd gear using just the rudimentary method of putting the clutch in and then easing the clutch out in the gear. That'll get you into the gear, but it's pretty uncomfortable for the whole thing, the car, and it the reason why race cars don't do that is because, or race drivers rather, is because the rear wheels act like a brake that way, and if you're on anything but decent traction or well within your performance envelope, you're going to spin. So I'm going to take this upcoming 3rd gear corner by single clutch downshifting. So here we go, covering the throttle. Didn't do that, my mistake. Too many things at once, there was a pedestrian there, I'll do that again. So So easing down, single clutch, match the revs. Notice there was much less jerking. Hope the camera's picking that up well. But again, only a single clutch. So that made the transition smooth, the downshift is smooth, no shock through the drive line, which is what you want, obviously. But again, if this is a non-synchro gearbox, the transmission just simply wouldn't go into third gear or second gear as you go down, or first gear. So here I'll do this one single clutch, and then I'll go into second gear, double clutching. So you'll notice, if you do it properly, that the gear just drops into the lever just drops into gear, because there's no work from the synchro required to make the speeds of the input shaft versus the output shaft. So just to reiterate again, the three ways that I've shown you how to downshift here, kind of from worst to best by far, is again you're going to from any corner or any straight that you need to get onto say second gear, third gear, coming from your top gears. Clearly you need to get into the lower gear. Well, how do you do that? You obviously have to brake at the same time. You can just dip the clutch and then slowly ease the clutch back out. That's certainly not ideal. I just showed you the example of it. The next is the single clutch downshift, which is this. So I didn't quite blip that one enough, but I got it enough that it was far smoother. And then when I get to the next part of the road here, I will kind of continue on with the dual clutch downshifting kind of for the rest of this video, for at least for this portion, simply because I really want you guys to learn to do that if you're interested. It's by far the best of all of them. Again, it saves the wear on your clutch as well as the wear on your synchros. As you'll recall, I said earlier, single clutch just matches the engine speed in that gear to the road speed of the wheels. The double clutching does that, as well as matching the input shaft speed to the output shaft speed, which means the synchros don't have to do their job, which would normally do that if you weren't doing that. So I'll continue driving here again as I go in and out of my little road here. I'll continue double clutch downshifting, so you folks really get a good sense of it. Again, I'm not the only one that's ever done a video on this, no doubt. There are lots of other people, lots of other resources. I'll put a link to a couple of books maybe that you might want, and obviously there's a ton of videos. Just Google double clutch heel and toe downshifting, or how to drive a car with no synchros. See, even though it doesn't look like I'm dipping the clutch that much, it's actually working really well, because you can feel it in the lever. There's not a lot of resistance, whereas there is otherwise. If you're just cruising along in fourth gear and you put the clutch in and tried like this and try to force it into second gear, you'd feel, well, first of all, there you feel the revs have to go up, and then you can actually feel the synchro doing the work. If you're really interested in how synchros work, I suggest you Google that. It's actually pretty interesting. There's a bit of the voodoo, inside a manual transmission that not everyone, even a pretty hardcore car guy, may not completely understand how a standard transmission actually functions. So if you do that, then you'll kind of understand how to handle one, especially without synchros. Like I say, formula cars like Formula Fords that still have like a Hewland 4-speed gearbox, and dogs, I guess they call them, engagement dogs, they don't have synchros. So unless you do exactly what I'm doing here, you'll never be able to downshift. So that one went in smooth, that one went in smooth too, and then well, that one I had to stop for a stop sign. But anyway, beautiful day out here. Smoky where I live. I said that earlier. Hopefully you folks aren't affected by all of that. It seems like most of the western part of North America is on fire. Certainly I hope anyone who's affected by that comes out of it as best they can. So again, some more raw footage here of me. There's a double clutch into second gear, and here's in the first gear as I turn around. And then I'm going to reposition the camera and take you guys for a good rip on a kind of a closed road that I go on, so you can see how I would do this in anger. Right now I'm driving pretty slow, so it's always easy to do things when you're driving slow. But if you're really hooning on your car or your race car, you want to be have proof rather that that this works. This isn't a hindrance, and nor should it be. It sounds like you're doing an awful lot, and in a race car, tenths of a second count. But this is by far the easiest way to get longevity and smoothness out of your car, and smoothness is the key to speed, as anyone certainly with a lot more experience than I have will tell you. So there's two, clipping the apex onto the throttle. There we go. So I'll pause this here now, and I'll take it up in a few minutes here once I'm back to my the cool road that I like. That'll be kind of a closed road, so you can see me hooting on it a little more in anger. Thanks, folks.